Hi everyone, it's Marisa from bumblebeeapothecary.com, and today I'm going to bring you along while I make dinner. This is a dinner that we made a couple of times, and I wanted to share it because we really enjoyed it. It's one of those cuts of meat sometimes that you get when you get a whole beef, or maybe you get them another way from a store or co-op or whatever. But I know that when I first made it, I had to look up, how do you cook these? But it's how we're making cube steaks with gravy, and we really enjoyed it. So I wanted to share it on my channel when I made it this time. So I'm going to start by heating some fat in my cast iron skillet on the stove over about medium. Depending on your stove, you might want to be a little above medium, but medium is where I started. And I'm using lard for the fat. And I'm just going to start that melting. And then I'm making a mixture of some flour with I use a little bit of sucanat in there, some black pepper, salt, garlic powder, onion, some chili powder, and paprika. So I used, for amounts, I just did a little of like 1 teaspoon of the sucanat, half a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of chili powder, and a teaspoon of paprika. So pretty easy little measurements to remember. And then I have that in like a half a cup or so of flour. So I like to use white einkorn flour if it's something where I'm coating something like this. Another option is you could mix those spices into sourdough starter. That would kind of work in a similar way, just a little differently. I'm just doing the white einkorn flour this time. So I have that mixture, and I'm just putting each of the cube steaks into that mixture and then putting them into the heated lard in the cast iron skillet. So I'm doing that with all of them. I'm letting them cook for about 3 minutes or so on each side, and then I'm flipping them over to cook for a few minutes on the other side. And then over to the right, while those steaks are cooking, I'm going ahead and cutting up some potatoes. I'm going to get these cooking in water to be mashed potatoes to go along with this, because we end up making a gravy with them, and so it's just really delicious to have all that together. If you're not having flour and sucanat and different things like that, you can actually make this in a similar way. You just leave out the flour, leave out the sucanat, and use those same spices and just season the steaks that way and fry them on each side. And then you would just do a gravy with a much less liquid later on, because you're going to be reducing it down rather than using the flour that's coating them to thicken it. And then you can do something else like mashed cauliflower instead of potatoes if you wanted to fit with gaps, or you were staying away from those ingredients for whatever reason. Those are common swaps that I have done in the past when my family has been on needing to stick to gaps, for example. So I always like to just include those ideas for swaps if you still wanted to make this recipe but you're on gaps, for example. Once those steaks have finished cooking on both sides, I'm just going to take them out of the pan and put them onto a plate. So then to the pan where the steaks were cooking, I'm going to add half a cup of butter, and then I'm going to scrape up those little bits from the steaks that were cooking there, because that will really add flavor to the gravy. And then to the pan with the butter melting, I'm going to add some onions cut up. I'm going to slice 2 large onions and slice them thinly and add those to the pan. And then for thickening the gravy, since I'm doing it that way, I'm just adding the rest of the flour mixture from coating the steaks right into the pan to thicken it. And then for a vegetable side, I'm going to just saute some green beans in some butter. So I have another cast iron pan back here, some butter, putting some frozen green beans in there to cook. And then to make the gravy, I'm adding, ideally, I wish that I had some beef meat stock or broth to add, but I don't. So I'm adding a little bit of water and then some milk and making that type of a gravy. There's still lots of flavor in there from the meat that was cooking, and then the milk makes like a nice cream type gravy. So I'm really just improvising since I don't have on hand what we need. As you can see, we're just moved into this new house, and so I don't have my whole routine of broth and different things, stock going that I like to have. So we're doing the best here, but ideally it should be beef meat stock or beef broth. And then you can add milk or not if you want to, depending on what kind of a gravy that you like. And then some other things that are nice to add are a little bit more onion powder, garlic powder. If you have natural Worcestershire sauce, you can add that. And then as this is cooking, I'm just stirring it around, watching for it to get thick, continuing to scrape up those little bits from the steaks that had been cooking down there. My potatoes are boiling away. And then once that gravy is the way that I like it, I'm going to go ahead and add the steaks back to the pan. So they are kind of seared on the outside, but the inside can still cook a bit. So now they're going to cook in this gravy a bit, and so the insides will be able to finish cooking. And they just turn out really flavorful and more tender this way. So that's where they are, just added to the gravy, and just simmer in there for a little bit while I finish up the rest of the things, giving the green beans a stir. And I apologize for the non-ideal filming setup and not the greatest lighting. We just moved, like I said, and we have to figure out how we want this. Kitchen renovation is coming up soon, and yeah, so the tripod and lighting situation will improve. Just thank you for bearing with me while we're just, making things happen here just after moving. Then my potatoes are ready, so I'm just draining the water off of them, and I'm going to go ahead and mix them. I like to use a hand mixer. I like to add some salt and pepper, some raw milk, some butter. I'll add sour cream or cultured cream if we have it, and just whip those together till they're nice and smooth. And then everything is ready by now and ready to serve. So we have some mashed potatoes there. Going to serve up a nice piece of the cube steak. And then we also like to put some of the onions and gravy on the steak to serve it, as well as on the mashed potatoes. My helper is handing me a ladle here. And then we're serving those green beans for the vegetables, and then also some sauerkraut. And it's not pictured here, but we did have sauerkraut on the side too for our fermented food. Alright, I hope that you enjoyed coming along and seeing what we had for dinner today. Just a nice, fun, cozy, delicious recipe that we all really enjoyed. I don't know, my kids loved it. My son was asking for me to make it again and again. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. I'll try to get the written version up on my website as soon as I can, so that will be there as well. Also, be sure and check out that description box for things that I have made for you guys, links to ebooks. I have free ebooks, meal plans, links to things that we like to use, all kinds of goodies down there. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with anybody else you think would enjoy it. And if you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I get out new videos every week on nourishing recipes and natural living. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.